I just want to talk quickly about a couple of the sort of key members in the League, and I've mentioned Ethel Ayres Purdie before. As I say, she was born in 1874, and she started her sort of career as agitating for women's rights in the telegraph office. When women were paid, they had suffered a deduction for pension contributions, but they had to leave their posts when they got married, and they never got the pensions. And she felt this was unreasonable, and she was part of the agitation to get that changed, so that when you left your job following marriage, you could at least then get some of those contributions back. She then married and in her 20s had kids, and then in her early 30s she started at the Society of Arts, and she took a course in accounting. She qualified in 1906, and she set up practice the following year. And by 1909, she had applied to the ICAW, who wouldn't admit her, and she'd also applied to the Society of Incorporated Auditors and Accountants, and they wouldn't have her. But she finally found the London Accountants Association, and they admitted her initially just to lectures in January 1909, and then by the middle of the year she'd made a sufficient impression that they let her in as a full member in May, and she was the toast of their Christmas meal that year. Because they were a very young organisation, the LAA was looked down upon by the likes of the ICAW, and they thought by admitting her it showed how progressive they were as an organisation. And she had the skills and the clients and the knowledge about tax to provide her skills to the League, and we'll talk about a lot of the cases that she was able to take. Because she was a member of the LAA, she had rights of representation, so she could represent clients at tribunals. And in fact, over time, over the years, she built up quite a substantial practice, primarily specialising in women's tax affairs. And you can see in this advert, she's advertised as the Women's Taxpayers Agency, and this is an advert that was in the Vote. And again, even advertising was considered a little bit risque. The second person who I think deserves a mention, because it'd be quite easy to overlook her, is Margaret Kineton-Parkes. And very much like Ethel, she was another woman who needed to earn her living. Naturally, because this is tax resistance, a lot of the women were quite wealthy within the group. And Margaret Kineton-Parkes, she was separated from her husband but not divorced. She had 2 sons, and she would have needed the income that the League paid her as League Secretary in order to live. And she went the length and breadth of the country, and she travelled over to Ireland and to international women's conferences, representing the League and speaking, and this is one of the League's postcards from the archives in the LSE.